All right, guys. Today we're going to talk about the exclusive buyer representation agreement for the state of Rhode Island. Okay. There have been some changes, a little bit to the document, but mostly to how do I say it? The industry as it pertains to the document. So we're gonna go through some of that here. Let's talk about the doc. So, exclusive buyer representation agreement. This is something that is required for you to have with all of your buyers. It is you need to have this signed by your buyers before you start working for them. Now, what constitutes working? Anything. Showing them properties, going to open houses with them or on their behalf, having them set up an email, like an auto email in the MLS. Like you need to have this signed. So, what actually goes in here? So the agreement is entered into. So this is the buyer's name. So, John and Sally Smith go here, boom, like right in these lines. And then the buyer, that is the buyer. And then the real estate brokerage firm it's Keller Williams Realty Leading Edge. 5 words, Keller Williams Realty Leading Edge goes here. Note that these contracts are not signed with you. You are a representation of the brokerage. They are signed with the brokerage. The brokerage owns the client. So that's why this says the brokerage firm of blank. And then the principal broker's number, in that case, that is John Somick. You can look up his information, but if you want to write it down, it's REB.00140022. Again, REB.00140022. I had to type it out to make sure I was doing it right. This agreement is effective on what day? Really, it should be the earliest date possible. So if you're sitting at their house or out to coffee with them and that's when your relationship starts, right then and there, that's when this starts. And then that contract goes for however long you and the client agree with. You can sign a 10-year contract if you want. It could be for one house. But however long you want to do it, it's up to you and your client. That is a negotiable thing. The designated buyer representative, that's you. So I said above that this contract actually belongs to the brokerage firm, Keller Williams Realty Leading Edge. The designated rep, that's you. So me. So you can put your name, Sally Smith, whatever your name is, that's what goes there. The buyer does have to acknowledge that they have received the document, the Rhode Island Mandatory Relationship Disclosure. That document, not for this video, but that document goes over the different ways that a real estate agent, a licensed realtor, can work with a customer or a client. If you are signing this, then you are most likely representing them as a designated client representative, which that document will say. But the buyer does need to have that. The most important aspect of the Rhode Island mandatory real estate relationship disclosure is the word mandatory. So, moving on, Section 5, the areas that you serve. Now, this document is for Rhode Island. So for me, I put Rhode Island. Some people say that they want to put like just the city, like, oh, they just said they want to buy in Warwick. So they'll put in Warwick. Well, what happens when the buyer buys a property in West Warwick and they do so with another agent because they don't understand the thing that they're signing? Well, your contract is only good for Warwick. So you're kind of out of luck. So I like to cast the widest net possible. So I put Rhode Island. For me personally, because I'm also licensed in Massachusetts and Connecticut, I'll put all 3 states that I'm licensed so that we understand that I'm representing them in all aspects. If it's other, go ahead and put other, but generally speaking, this is what you want anywhere you're licensed. Additional services, if there is something that you and your client have agreed to that is not otherwise stated in the contract, then that can go here. Otherwise, this can be left blank. Scrolling down. So this segment, so the professional services fee segment, formerly is commission, right? Now we're calling it professional services fee. This is where you lay out what you are charging for your services. It is important to note that what you are charging is negotiable. Commissions are not set. It even says right here, professional services fees are not set. They are all negotiable. It even says here, compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable. So this is the segment that we're going to lay it out. The amount of, you can write a dollar amount, a percentage of the gross purchase price, or some other condition. So if you agree to a certain amount of money. Let's call if you agreed to work for $10 million, your compensation is going to be $10 million. That's what you would write. 10 million. Well, I don't know. Apparently, I can't type in here, but $10 million, or whatever you want to put here. 16 apples, a car, whatever goes. Well, I guess not a car, an apple, because it has to be a dollar amount. So the dollar amount goes there. I'm just messing around, having a good time. But in seriousness, it is the amount of dollars that you're getting paid will go here. If you're getting a flat fee, if you're going to get paid on the gross purchase price, then that would go here. Well, what percentage? 2, 3, 5, 10, 40, whatever. That goes here. Note, though, that it says the gross purchase price. Most commonly, but not set by rule, is that in Rhode Island, you're paid off a net. So if you're saying it's like a $500,000 purchase price, but there's a $10,000 credit to the buyer for closing costs, well, the net sale price is actually $490 because it's the gross price minus any credits. So if you're going to be saying it's off the net, you would actually have to write it in here. Whatever percent, 6 apples, 2 oranges, whatever's of the net sale price, that would have to be laid out. So whatever you and your client agree to, because again, it is fully negotiable, goes in the applicable box. Okay. Moving on. Section B. If within blank days of the expiration, including extensions, the buyer acquires real property which was identified in accordance, blah, blah, blah. What this section is saying. Let's just say, for example, our contract goes through June 30th, 2025. On June 29th, the day before the contract expires, you and your buyer see a property in person. The buyer decides that they're not really interested. The next day, the contract is expiring. A couple days go by, say it's like July 6th. The contract has been expired for about a week. And they're like, wow, I really decided I like that property, 123 Main Street. Well, my contract has expired. I'm going to go and put an offer on this property with the listing agent myself, or I'm going to have my new agent do it, something. This section is a protection against that. So what they're saying, however many days after the contract expired, if they go see a property that you introduced them to, you can be entitled to your compensation. So the amount of days is negotiable. You and your client can discuss what is and is not appropriate for this portion of the deal. Far more complicated, and something that I think we should be handling on a case-by-case basis is the Section C, which is the idea that the buyer can pay the brokerage a non-refundable retainer in the amount of X dollars, which will be applied to the professional services fee. So the idea of a retainer is that you're going to collect some money up front to lock in your service, and whatever happens for the rest of the deal, they fire you the next day or they work with you for 10 years, that retainer is not refundable. That is, I forget the phrase. It's like, earned on payment or something like that. It's immediately your money. The brokerage's money, I should say. So that, like any other amount, is negotiable. Let's just say we've agreed on $1 as an example. If the compensation is going to be, let's say, 3% of the net sale price, and they have given a retainer of $1, then at closing, any money that's getting paid for your compensation, your professional services fee, is going to be that 3% minus the $1 because they've already given the dollar as a retainer. So that's how that works. So it's kind of like paying the compensation in 2 steps. And yes, unlike the past, it is reasonable to expect that the buyer could be paying you, paying the brokerage directly, or the seller could be paying the brokerage directly on the buyer's behalf of that, professional services fee. It is very, very much worth mentioning that the way we're working with commissions and professional services fees, I got to learn too, professional services fees in the industry, this is changing. It is an ever evolving landscape right now. The most appropriate thing to do, honestly, is have a discussion with your coach, so that you can be prepared for the discussion with your client, so that you guys can understand, or so that you guys can best negotiate a win-win for both you and your client. And if there's anything else that needs to be said about your compensation, you can write it in here. Any other considerations, this stuff all gets laid out, and any additional provisions that you and your client choose to, any conditions you choose to work under, that would go here. Okay. And then lastly, just the buyer, their information goes here. It does say authorized representative. That is not you. In the case in a case like this, if you have, God, what would an example even be? The buyer is like the parent, and like one of the kids is actually serving as the representative. So like your client is Joe and Sally Smith, but the daughter Melissa is the actual buyer that you're working with. So that person is their representative. Um, Most of the time you won't have anything like that, but just kind of that's why that's there. And then their physical mailing address as well as their email address goes here. The brokerage firm, Keller Williams Realty Leading Edge, goes here. Authorized representative, that's you. Mailing address, not your personal address, please. The address of the brokerage, 14 Breakneck Hill Road, Suite 101, Lincoln, Rhode Island, 02865, goes here. And then you can put your email address here. That's just fine. Everybody signs, bada bing, bada boom. The buyer signs the initials that say that they actually have a copy of this document, which they are entitled to a copy of anything they have signed with you. This agreement and the listing agreement both say that, they both have the section that they've initialed that they've received it. So they have to get a copy. You can't just sit on it. So that's that agreement. Again, these are required to work with your buyers. Please have them. Please remember that your coach should go over this with you, especially to make sure that you don't have any errors in here. And good hunting.